Today we're making this amazing strawberry layer cake entirely from scratch using real strawberries. So many recipes call for a white cake mix or strawberry Jell-O or other artificial ingredients, but this one's not going to have anything like that. No way, we're only going to be using fresh staples from your pantry and fridge. The cake part turns out so soft and pillowy moist, and the fluffy strawberry buttercream that we're going to be filling and frosting it with is simply going to make you fall in love. So we're going to begin with half a pound of strawberries. You can use fresh or frozen. I'm using frozen. And you want to put them in a saucepan and begin cooking them until they get nice and liquidy, until it almost starts to look like strawberry sauce. I'm just going to mash the strawberries down a little bit as it cooks to get it kind of a little more jam-like. And we're going to let it cook like this for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how high your heat is and the size of your saucepan. Ultimately, you want to end up with about half a cup of this strawberry reduction. I do this exact same step in my no-churn strawberry ice cream recipe, and if you're interested in that one, go ahead and click the link that you see in the top corner of your screen, or I can link it in the description below. Okay, so this is now reduced down to about half a cup. I cooked it for about 8 to 10 minutes. There is a little bit of wiggle room with that amount. If you have a little bit less or more, that's okay. Also, you want to make sure that you stir it often enough so it doesn't burn. Now we have to set this aside to cool completely, but I'm going to reserve about 2 tablespoons of this for the buttercream. The rest is obviously going in the cake batter. Now for the actual cake batter, we're going to begin by sifting together 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, or if you have cake flour, just use 1 1/4 cups of that. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, there's 2, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to mix that together really well right inside the sifter, and then just sift away. Sifting the dry ingredients together for a cake like this is well worth the effort, because it really does help to make your cake nice and light and fluffy. Alright, we'll just set that aside. Now into a larger bowl, I'm going to combine 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of oil, and 3/4 cup of sugar. I'm going to beat that with the electric mixer until it's light and fluffy, about a minute or 2. Don't forget, every now and then you're going to want to scrape down the sides of that bowl. You want to make sure everything gets really well incorporated. So after about a minute of beating, I'm going to add 3 egg whites. You can also use 2 whole eggs if you don't want to use egg whites. 1/4 cup of sour cream, the cooled down strawberry reduction, and a teaspoon of vanilla. And a totally optional ingredient, just a few drops of red food coloring to make our cake extra strawberry-like. Alright, now we're going to give that a good mix. Oh wow. Yeah, that's strawberry-like, alright. Alright, a quick scrape. Give it another mix. Now we have to start alternately adding our dry mixture with 1/4 cup of milk. So you just add about 1/3 of the dry and maybe half of the milk. And then we're just going to kind of mix it on low speed. And go a little bit more of the dry, and then the rest of the milk. Give that a little spin. And then finally, the rest of the dry. There we go. Again, one last scrape. Very important. And then just mix it enough that it's nice and incorporated. You don't want to overdo it. Alright, that looks really good. Now I'm going to divide this evenly between my 2 prepared pans. For that, all I did was use whatever leftover butter was on my paper. You could also use just oil or even cooking spray for this part. And then I just placed 2 pieces of parchment paper cut to size to fit on the bottoms of those pans, just like that. Remember, these are 6-inch cake pans. If you want an 8 or 9-inch cake, then go ahead and double this recipe and it will work out perfectly. You just want to make sure you spread it nice and evenly and then give them a little bang on the counter. That's going to help release any air bubbles that are trapped in the batter. Now I'm going to bake these in a preheated 350 Fahrenheit oven for 25 to 30 minutes. If you're doing the larger 8 or 9-inch version, it might take a few more minutes. But here's what they look like, and when you touch the center, it should spring back slightly. So now we have to let these cool in the pans for about 10 minutes. Then I'm going to run a knife along the edges and then turn them out to cool completely. You can really tell how soft and fluffy this cake is going to be just by doing this part. I mean, look at that. Look at how soft and spongy that is. Okay, so we're going to let them cool completely. For the buttercream, I'm going to start with 3/4 of a cup of unsalted butter, but you could use salted if you wanted to. I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we're just going to beat it so that it gets kind of creamy. After about a minute or so, I'm going to start adding 2 to 3 cups of icing sugar. You're probably only going to need about 2 cups. You might want to kind of stir the mixers around a little bit like this before you actually beat it in, because it can get pretty messy. So you might want to think about that. What we're making here is an American buttercream, and it's pretty much just the butter and this confectioner's sugar. Some people call it powdered sugar or icing sugar. I think here in Canada we call it icing sugar, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe you could let me know in the comments if I'm right. It's really important to scrape the sides so all that sugar gets mixed in. One secret ingredient I like to add to my buttercream is boiling water. So here's 1 tablespoon. I'm going to add another 1/2 tablespoon. This is really going to help lighten the frosting, make it really extra creamy. I think right now I'm going to add maybe another 1/4 cup or so of the icing sugar, and also that reserved strawberry reduction that we did earlier. Just going to let that... Oh, and I almost forgot. A teaspoon of vanilla. All right. Now we're just gonna mix this really well, and that should pretty much do it for the icing. In total, I used 2 1/4 cups of icing sugar. Whoa. So I've been beating this for about a minute now, and I did scrape the sides of the bowl while I was beating, just to make sure everything got mixed in. And you can see that it's gotten very light and fluffy. This looks absolutely perfect. I'm going to start by slapping a little buttercream on the plate, and then I'm going to place one of the cake layers upside down. I know a lot of people like to do fancy trimming and all that, but this isn't for anything special, so I'm just going to skip that for today. I'm going to put a little bit more than 1/3 of the icing in the middle. I always like to do that with my cakes because I find the middle always gets chinsed out. Now I'm just going to spread that all around, go right over the edges. I'm going to put even a tad more in there. Okay, now I'm going to place the other layer upside down on top. Don't be afraid to press it down a little bit. And now I'm going to put pretty much the rest of the icing on top over the whole thing. And then you just spread it all around so that it falls down the side of the cake. And then there'll be enough icing on the sides coming out from the middle and falling down that you'll have enough to cover the whole thing without even having to do a cover coat. Then I'm just going to do some swirly things here and there. I'm going to make these nice little swirly peaks. I really like when my cakes have a homemade look. All right, there we go. So now we're going to let this refrigerate for a little bit so it can set up, and then I'll show you what it looks like. However, I do like to take it out of the fridge about an hour or two before serving, because cake really does taste better at room temperature. It might seem counterintuitive to refrigerate and then let a cake come back to room temperature, but I think cake and frosting just become better friends that way. But you're really gonna love how super light and fluffy and moist this cake turns out. I can tell just by cutting through it how light and fluffy it is. Just look at how gorgeous that pink color is. I'm really happy I put that red food coloring in. We really do eat with our eyes first. And even though I don't love using food coloring in my recipes, it sometimes has its place, and this recipe is one of them. But you can see how the fork just sinks into that cake like a big plush pillow. And the strawberry flavor in both the cake and the buttercream is just so bright. If you have anyone in your life that loves the color pink, I can't think of a better cake to make as a tribute to their birthday. Just look at how soft and fluffy and moist that cake is. I don't normally eat my cake like this, but I just want to show you. I really hope you'll give this strawberry layer cake a try soon, and if you're interested in another strawberry dessert, then check out this old-fashioned strawberry shortcake video right now.